Because the perfect love story that's happening right now is a love story with me. Yeah. Hi, welcome to another episode of Choosing Joy. My name is Xavier. I'm the host, producer, creator, editor, all of that of this podcast. And I thank you so much again for just coming here to join me, be in my space once again. And really quick, before I get into the episode and everything else that comes with it, I really just want us to take a moment to first honor Black History Month. And because of the simple fact that with everything that is currently happening in the United States with who's in office, and the challenges that are coming along with said individual, I think right now is the opportunity that we need to take to recognize our strength, and recognize our resilience. We have seen times like this, nothing to this magnitude, I don't think, but we've definitely seen times like this before, not in my lifetime, but it's something that our ancestors and our elders have been able to persevere, have been able to create wonderful art, been able to contribute wonderful history, and have been able to raise us up out of these occurrences. Beyond that, now is a time where we recognize the interconnectedness of it all. Black people, Latinx people, Asian people, Middle Eastern people, queer people, straight people, poor people, and those who are slightly more affluent than the poor. We always talk about the 1% and the 99%. And I think now the 99% of us all must come together collectively to fight that 1%. Now's not the time to be complacent. And now's not the time to create excuses nor point fingers at one another who are in that 99% right alongside you. Because at the end of the day, we're all fighting the same fight, which is freedom. Whether that's economic freedom, racial freedom, sexual freedom, gender freedom. We're fighting for freedom for all of us. And until all of us are free, none of us are free. And we need to pay attention to that, close attention. Honoring the past is what helps us to propel forward to the future. So, I don't want to make this episode political because this is not a political episode whatsoever. It's more so having to do with individual relationship with oneself. But before I even get into all of that, I think it's very important that we recognize it is time for us to live collectively and work collectively for a better society. Because right now, things don't look too good. We must lead with love, and we must fight strongly in whatever capacity we can. All right. So I'll leave that there. And happy Black History Month to all my folk out there. Love y'all. I want to go ahead and roll into today's notation. And of course, the notation does come from Pinterest. And I feel like this notation is relative to what I just said, but it's also especially relative to the title of today's episode. And so the notation reads that the most powerful muse of all is our own inner child. The most powerful muse of all is our own inner child. And I think that that is something we should take with us always. Because the most important relationship that you're going to have in this world is with yourself. And that first starts with the little one that's within. Often, everybody has, in some way or another, experienced childhood trauma. has in some way or another felt suppressed in their childhood. And I know for me especially, it's very important that I recognize the little boy within me who desires and needs that love, and to give that to myself. And so today I'm going to be sharing a couple of my experiences that have helped me get to that slight awakening of healing the inner child within and recognizing the importance of that relationship with me first. So before we get into the narrative, I have a journal entry for us this time because we didn't have it in the last episode. So I pray that this journal entry will be relative to you and it will flow easily into the narrative. And I'll see you just in a minute. Corey's entry, Daydreaming. A memory from nearly 10 years ago, depending on how vivid, I can experience it all over again. As if it were yesterday, I remember every get-together, TV show, and movie, Christmas argument, and lazy Sunday in my childhood apartment. I can hold it in my hand. Even in the hood, I miss that feeling of safety and protection. I miss the nostalgia of my childhood. I miss it all. But not only do I go back in time, I somehow go forward. I saw my graduations, my career beginning, the places I'd see, and how I would have the opportunity to be in love. How my life would be so rich in it. How the love of my life and I will be intentional showing up for one another. And where we could recognize home in a person. Reality doesn't give as much hope as the possibilities. However, the future that I've seen, the past I've experienced, have been motivation to remain more present, grounded. I'm excited, anxious to see my visions be made real. For my daydreams to no longer just be dreams but lived out days. At the moment, I value the memories being made. Because one day I'm going to want to remember this moment of stillness. I'm going to be proud of the times when I was isolated and somehow returned unscathed. And when people think I have no love to give, I will be the loudest one giving it. And hopefully, my love will see each other again. Not just as mirrors of who we see each other as, but the live versions of one another. Soon our daydreams will be real life. But I'm good with living in my dreadful reality for now. That was Corey's entry, Daydreaming. Now back to the show. Alright, welcome back. I hope that you all enjoyed that journal entry. And so now we're going to go ahead and flow into the narrative. And so today's title of the episode is Romancing Singleness. I have been single now, it's 2025 now. I guess you could say I've been single for about almost 2.5, 3 years, give or take. And I'm gonna explain that awkwardness a little bit because while I have been single for about that long, I've had some dating experiences, and I just really want to be able to reflect on the past so that way, you know, it can help me in my own future and in my present more specifically. And so I want to take you back just a little bit to January of 2021. January 2021 is where I met my first love. For the boys out there, we met on the Orange and Black app. Stay off of it. Okay? Stay off of it. And we didn't meet in a space of lust. We really met in a space of love. And it was really innocent between the two of us. After about 2 weeks of us communicating with one another, I found that he and I made each other feel very comfortable in a way that I don't think either of us had experienced, especially with another guy. And we really cling to that, and there was a codependency that was built in that relationship. And out of that codependency, the relationship was on a foundation of immaturity, and in that immaturity grew toxicity. We were both fresh 18-year-olds who really didn't have a clue about what a relationship was supposed to look like, what love really was, and as a result, there was a lot of selfishness that was held on one end and a lot of codependency that was on my end. And so the chemistry was great, but I don't think we were really compatible. And there was a lot of on and off in that relationship, for sure. And the time that really struck me the most, and I guess you can say kind of hurt me the most, was when I woke up to being blocked out of nowhere in 2022. Like I said, we were already on and off, and I was already going through a lot during that time, academically and personally. And when he blocked me, I was confused because I'm like, what did I even do? So I ended up, coming out of all of that, a lot stronger, unscathed. And in April 2022, I got a text message from a burner account on Instagram. And I knew who the heck it was because I know how to fool. I'm sorry, not fool, but I knew how he texted. And so, as he's sitting there trying to like flirt and all that stuff, I was like, you want attention? All right, I'm going to hit your pride. And I told him, I said, you really hurt me. And so then that kind of opened up the floodgates of apologies. And I wasn't so quick to let him back in this time because of the simple fact that we had already been through so much, and at that time when I needed him most, for no good reason, I was blocked. We didn't even argue or anything the night before. It was just like completely random. And he had already had some toxic habits of like going recluse and not saying anything, and where I had to pretty much just keep taking that. And that was beyond unfair to me. And so that summer, I was already doing my research, and I began to people were already, around that same time he texted me, people were already like beginning to express interest in me. So I was beginning to express interest in them, go on dates, focus on my research, focus on myself. And around that time in the summer of 2022, my father passed, and he reached out. But I was keeping him at bay because of the simple fact that, one, I'm traumatized. And two, I'm dating other people. And three, I need to be focused on me. There was this one guy who I was dating in that summertime, and he was really good guy, really treated me like somebody. It really made me feel special. But what ended up happening is I realized that I liked more what he did for me rather than the actual feeling of it all. It did get to a point where I was becoming uninterested, and I would feel guilty about that. And then also my ex was beginning to creep back in. And so I was very much confused between wanting something healthy, but yet not being able to let go of the toxicity and the comfort that came with. And I didn't want to put this individual who had really wanted something with me, and who I thought I wanted something with, but just having to be honest with myself, I wasn't ready for that, or maybe not ready for that with him. And so I told him, that about how I was feeling, not to the entire degree, but I did let him know that, I don't want to play pretend. And reluctantly, he understood that. And not too long after, I began communicating with my ex again. And now me and my ex, we were on the phone, we were crying. Oh, God, this is so stupid. We were on the phone, we were crying, and, we were just like having like a come to Jesus moment, I guess you could say. And he really wanted a second chance. I told him, I was like, oh, look, I done gave you too many doggone second chances. If I do this again, this is it. This is it, and we're done. Because I showed up for you in the ways that I needed to, the ways that you needed me to. and now I need you to kind of like show up for me. And he's like, I promise I'm gonna do that. Like, I ain't going nowhere, Zay. I promise you, I got you. Like, I'm really trying to make it work this time. I promise. I said, okay. So I was trying to get my family back together. And man, little did I know, like, it was just going to be the same repeated cycle over again. There was this thing where we would like be, when we were good, we were really good, and then it would fizzle out, get too comfortable, and like he left me high and dry. And so that pattern began to get repeated again, and I noticed it. And one day I was like in very deep grief about my father, and so I reached out to him, just to kind of like have a support system to talk to. I had already talked to my friends and my mother, earlier that week about what I had been going through. And me and my ex at the time, my boyfriend at the time, my ex now, we hadn't really communicated that much in that week or the week prior. So I called him and there was no answer. I'm like, now, and I was just like, this is not, like, this is exactly what you said you were going to not do. Like, what you're doing is what was happening before, and you said there was going to be a changed behavior, and there's not. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm frustrated, and my mind is racing, and clear as day, I hear God say, download it. I said, but God, well, he downloaded. I said, okay. I said, God, are you download it? So you know what I do? And you know what I did, boys? I downloaded that orange and black app, but I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you what I did. So I downloaded the app, and I put in his location because he was living in a different city at the time. We went to 2 different universities. Put in his location. The first square I see, I screenshot it, and I sent him a text. I said, is this you? And please don't lie to me. It's just straight like that, right? Why I get a FaceTime immediately after? I get a FaceTime immediately after. And he's like, oh, my head was hurting, da da da. I said, but this button was active. Crickets. So anyways, we hang up, and he begins texting, and he calls my bluff, because I lied and told him, like, I had a friend who was in the area that sent me the screenshots or whatever. And he called my bluff. He was like, nah, what you did this is exactly what I told y'all I did. And I neither confirmed nor denied it, but what I did say was, you're not going to sit here and pretty much, like, play in my face right now. And so I marinated on that situation for a day. That happened on September 29th. I let all of September 30th go by, and it just wouldn't leave my mind. And so, following that, I made a pros and cons list in the middle of the night. I had about 15 pros. Going through. And I'm doing pros first, then I'm doing a con. Pro and a con. When I get to number 15, all I can make up is cons. Now, mind you, I am trying my hardest I'm really trying my hardest to find pros, and I can't. So, after accepting the fact that this is not going to go in the direction that I wanted to go at the time, I dropped this very long text message. And I work on this text message for 2 hours. It's like 2 a.m. I'm working on it for like 2 hours, pretty much. I'm talking proofreading, punctuation, citations, if you will. I'm including instances of what happened. And at 4 a.m. on October 1st that year, I sent him the very long text message. And the next morning, I wake up to get ready for class, and the first thing I do is check my phone. And my long text message got the response of, okay. So what do you do when you get that? After you've put your heart and your mind into something that was a very critical decision, after, allowing somebody to come back into your space who asked to be there and didn't honor it. What do you do when they're okay to not even fight for a situation that they even wanted to return to, that you didn't even ask for them to come back to? You accept it. And so that was the beginning of the process of me coming to terms with the fact that I have to really build a solid relationship with me now, instead of trying to center this romantic relationship with him that is just not going to be to my benefit.
I fall in love with myself, and I want someone to share it with me. I want someone to share me with me.
And so, after finally accepting that and moving on, I sat down with myself and I said, okay, I gotta sit down. And I'm gonna be honest, because I was pretty honest in the last episode. I have a thing when it comes to like getting under people to get over people. And with me and my ex, because I explained, we did the on and off again type of relationship. To keep myself from thinking about him, I would get under people while still thinking about him, which was extremely unhealthy. Because we would just get right back together. And I was going through so much with the grieving process of my dad. And then also, I'm grieving now my first love and grieving the first real relationship that I ever had. So I said, well, let me really pour into myself and really focus on me and making myself better. So I sat down and I intentionally did not date anyone, and I did not have sex with anyone or any sort of sexual contact while going through all of that, because I was just emotionally not in the space to withstand that. Now, that does not go to say that I am perfect, by no means, because I definitely did slip up towards the end of that year in 2022 about 2-3 times. And what that showed me was that I craved more so to know myself intimately more than I craved the attention and the affection from someone else. That was more important to me. And so from December leading into January of 2023, I was really focused on making myself a better person. And I actually came across this book by an author that was local to the university I went to, Ayantha Usin. And she had this book called He Wasn't an Either. Now, this book was definitely intended for women. However, it definitely did resonate with me in just the overall message of self-love and prioritizing the relationship with yourself and incorporating a relationship with God in the center of that, rather than focusing solely and centering your life mainly around romance. And that book was empowering for me to actually begin the process of prioritizing that. And in the midst of me prioritizing that type of relationship with myself, what I was able to do was figure out the things that I liked and what I didn't like. I don't always have to go to a party to have a good time, and I also don't always have to be around people to be around a good time. And in this time was a very beautiful time, because I realized for the first time I could actually be alone and enjoy my own company without feeling bad about it. It was something about just really being around myself and getting to know me intimately that I had never in a way done before. That was just very comforting. I had never experienced anything like that. Also, I fell back in love with journaling. And in that falling back in love with journaling, what I was able to do was not only it was a prayer journal. So quite literally, I was forming a friendship and a relationship with God again, which was something that I had not known, or I can't say not known, but it was just something that I hadn't done in a while. And I forgot how it felt. And so I was all about Xavier becoming better. I refuse to become bitter by situations. I think there's just something that God has possessed inside of me to refuse is bitterness. And I just began to get better about the situation, you know? And I began to like move a lot clearer about the things that I wanted from myself. And not only what I wanted from myself, but what I also wanted to give out to the world, which was my best self. And I realized that in order for me to be able to receive any type of love that is that mirrors the love from God and the love that I give myself, is to first give it to myself. And that was just a whole journey of literally romancing singleness. I'm talking like full on dating myself, full on being single on purpose. And, you know, there were plenty of times now where I was very lonely, very horny, and just very frustrated because I was just like, I'm putting in all of this work and yet it just doesn't seem like there's a reward after it. You know, just kind of searching that instant gratification of, if I do the work to have a good relationship with myself, then I'll be worthy of a good relationship with someone else romantically. And I think I held on to that sort of outlook subconsciously even in 2024. When in all actuality, I just really should have been seeing that the reward all along was just being a more secure version of myself, being the Xavier that I always wanted to be, which was finally secure. I didn't want to operate in my insecurities anymore. I didn't want to operate in my anxiety anymore, you know, and having an anxious attachment style. I wanted to become secure, and that's what happened. And that's still what's happening. Even in every challenge that I had faced in 2024, and you can go back to the other episode to hear more about it, you'll understand that humanly, we just want to be loved. And that's all it ever has been for me, is I just wanted to be loved. But finally, giving that love to myself made me feel whole. And centering spirit in the middle of it definitely made me feel elevated, euphoric even. I did a lot of praying, I did a lot of fasting for love in 2023, and now that I'm sitting here in 2025, after going through everything that I went through in 2024, I'm really having a light bulb moment that I got my prayers answered, and that I no longer need that validation or even care to seek it, because I'm already valid.
Nobody, no man and no woman, is precisely what they think they are. Love is where you find it, and you don't know where it will carry you. And it is a terrifying thing. Love, it is the only human possibility, but it's terrifying.
Experiencing everything in these past 2 years has definitely got me to this point to where I can feel confident and feel valid, and know where my validation comes from, which is from above and which lands within. And I'm so thankful for that. Now I'm kind of in this situation, or not necessarily a situation, but in a space where I'm trying to navigate, okay, how do I date while still practicing self-preservation without coming across selfish or becoming avoidant? Because I was so anxious before. I don't want to become avoidant to protect myself. While on the other hand, I don't want to be so closed off, you know, or so open to everything, because that was the issue in 2024. I put myself back to being just entirely too open. And now I'm like, I want to remain open, but I don't want to be naive. And I think that's what 2024 was necessary for. It was a reminder, you know. I was beating myself up a little bit about everything that happened, um, but you know, God's grace is something that's very real, and also acknowledging God's grace and also channeling it to giving myself grace as well. You know, to seeing that some things you go through are absolutely necessary for your growth and development. And I definitely think that it was necessary for me. I think that the loneliness and the desperation that I definitely felt in 2024 was a reminder of what it was like to just be wanting to be loved. You know, cuz having been single not necessarily for so long, but having been single and being intentionally so, you know, definitely was becoming challenging. And so I faltered. And I fell into like, you know, doing I just fell pretty much, just for lack of better words. But now I'm getting back up. I'm getting back up and I'm getting back to a space where I'm like I'm open to receiving love. But I'm giving it to myself first. I'm not putting myself in the position to just convincing myself that I'm healed and enough to be in a relationship, because I feel like if I came out of it the first time directly into a relationship, I probably would have been repeating the same cycle. But now what I'm seeing is that I can stand on my own 2 feet, number one, and number two, I have a really good understanding of who I am, what I need, and what I want. And not only that, I know how I want to show up for someone else. And also, I know that I can be able to show up for someone in the ways that they need to, but I also am not going to compromise my needs as well, which was the issue all along. Just being the sacrificial lamb, me always sacrificing myself. And I am now in a space where I can give love and be supportive and be a safe space while also being able to self-preserve. And so I think that in 2025, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to be a serial dater or anything like that, because you know there are still some things that I'm working on, like I talked earlier about, you know, like my promiscuous past and stuff like that. There's still things that I'm working on, but overall I think that I want to do things the quote unquote right way, which is to check myself first, be here for me first, and treating myself the way that I know I need to be treated, how I want to be treated, and not accepting anything less of that when the time comes to be in love with someone. When my person does come along. And also, I'm not going to be looking for the fairy tale expectation anymore either, because that was also my problem. I'm no longer going to be looking for the fairy tale, you know, perfect love story to happen, because the perfect love story that's happening right now is a love story with me. Yeah. And that's true shit right there. I am the perfect love story, man. I am. And my love story ain't over. Like, I'm still learning myself intimately every day. And even when I get in a relationship, I'm still going to be intimately knowing myself. It's just that I'll have the choice to share myself with someone else. And that's a choice that that's a choice that I do want to have one day. Now, if it's in the cards for me, I graciously accept them. And if it's not, I graciously accept them, because I'm now in a space where I know that I am enough. And that's so freeing to say, because I ain't say that ever. I've never said that. I'm enough. My love story with myself is perfect, man. I wouldn't ask for it to happen in any other way. So with all of that said, thank y'all for listening to me again, watching me again, and building this community that is around joy and around love and around self-preservation and around support, collective support. I know this is just the internet, happening, but this is my challenge for myself and for you to use it and apply it in real life with your loved ones, platonically and or romantically, because I think that it's very important for me to do that as well. So I thank y'all again. I thank y'all again for this healing moment, this necessary episode. This was a necessary episode. And actually, this was probably the one episode that I was super excited to record for whatever reason. Like, I knew this was going to be my favorite episode, and I'm finally getting to this point to actually be able to say this and mean it genuinely. So I'm going to end it there. Because I am hungry. I'm sure y'all probably heard my stomach growl a couple of times during this episode. I want to say thank you again. And like I always say, remember, no matter how hard the day, try your very, 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 very best. Your very best to choose joy. Y'all take care, and I'll see you next time.